Knesset Yoav Kisch is also co-chair of the Israel United Kingdom Parliamentary Friendship Group. Member of the Knesset Kisch, please.
Thank you very much, Lord Rothschild, distinguished guests. Let me start by a short apology. I was supposed to be earlier on the schedule, but as of the work of the Knesset and the committee, I had to come and go all the time, but I'm very happy to be here, especially as of my personal family background. As you can see here in front of us is the Balfour Declaration, and I'd like to read it for you. His Majesty's government view with favor the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people, and will use their best endeavors to facilitate the achievement of this object, it being clearly understood that nothing shall be done which may prejudice the civil and religious rights of existing non-Jewish communities in Palestine, or the rights and political status enjoyed by Jews in any other country. To me, this piece of history is unique. I'm the grandchild of Brigadier General Frederick Kisch, who was serving in the British Army, first for the First World War, injured, and then participated in the peace negotiations on Versailles in France, and later on became a true Zionist, came to Israel with the request of Chaim Weizmann, and actually was the head of the political department of the Jewish Agency in Israel between 1926 to 1932. My grandfather joined the British Army again on Second World War, in which his family was taken to South Africa in the chance of the Nazis coming into Israel, and he fought, and he died at 1944 and is buried in a British cemetery for soldiers in Tunisia, together with his brother-in-arms. He was serving as the chief engineer with Montgomery, and passed the El Alamein fight and stopping Rommel army. So that's my background. And there's a book about my father, my grandfather, that my father wrote, and this is something in particular that I'd like to read regarding the Balfour Declaration. This is actually a quote by Sir Harold Nicholson, which was a British diplomat. And this is what he wrote about my grandfather. When peace was signed, jumping peace means after the First World War. When peace was signed, I scarcely saw him, that's my Kish, for several years. And my next recollection of him is when I met him in Jerusalem in 1926. I was passing through on my way to Iran, and I remember walking with Kish upon Mount Scouts and gazing across the amazing contours of the mountains of Moab. It was a different Kish from the brilliant staff officer whom I had known in 1919. His whole life, his whole work was devoted to the cause of Zionism. And I can remember discussing with him the inner meaning of the Balfour Declaration and telling him what Mr. Balfour had said to me about it on the day it was signed. And that's a quote now, open the quote. And that's Balfour saying to Sir, "You see, what we wish to do is to provide an asylum for some of the unhappiest people in the world. The moment they have a land of their own, the Jews will acquire a new dignity. I belong to a land-working class, and I think it wrong that a people should be denied the right of working on their own land. And at the same time, on Mount Scopes, there will be erected one of the world's great universities. Thus, one of the most brilliant races in the world will find a scope and center for the exercise of its own geniuses." That meant to the University Ivrit, which was established just, I think, a year later, the Balfour Declaration. When I told Kish what Mr. Balfour had said to me, he was silent for some time. And then he said, "Yes, that is all right. But you see, this work here is something much more than that. It is wider and deeper. And here he paused for a moment and added, and older. So I think Lord Balfour's statement was the international diplomatic gateway for recognition of the right to establish, for the Jews to establish a state. But as my grandfather said in 1926 in the mountain on Jerusalem, our right to the land of Israel stands on our historical right and is engraved in the Holy Bible. Thank you very much.